exist. I don't know if you guys can join in or not. So there we go. But that clay, I'm going to do it. Sculpting a Nosferatu for my monster museum. So, hello? Hey, people can join me. That's awesome.
Hey, Alan.
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Very good. Very good. It's always better when someone can join me because then I know someone is there. A little weird talking to myself. So what I am doing now is I am just doing pinches of clay to control the depth of the sculpt. If you guys have any questions about the sculpt or anything in general, feel free to ask. I'm hoping I can get this guy knocked out in about 2 hours, but it is going to be recorded to YouTube this time. I'm pretty confident about that. I lost my Black Lagoon sculpt. That was very sad. But I've never claimed to be have technical prowess. So it's taken quite a while to figure it out. Is that Zach?
Yeah.
How's it going, man? So how has your haunt been, sir, Zach?
I've been doing good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. We're doing good. It's been crazy out there, man.
Pretty good attendance last weekend?
Yeah. We broke 100 people on the second weekend on one of our nights on Friday.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
That's good for a start. If you did that, you're probably looking at a 1,500 person season.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Good deal.
Dan's real enthusiastic with his numbers, but I'm trying to calm him down a little bit. He's real excited about all of this.
You could have just ended that sentence with Dan is real enthusiastic.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah,
so,
we just finished up our first serious commercial and boosted that today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that mostly for YouTube, or is that for you guys doing a TV station or something?
It's mostly for YouTube on this one. So.
Yeah, you guys can monitor yourselves as far as sounds go. I do want to be able to talk to people, but gotta watch out for radios playing and that kind of stuff and feedback. So you can cut slabs of clay and lay them on, but if you do that, what can happen is that you don't know how thick it is. So it's a little bit tougher to get a uniform thickness. Like on this nose, you'd lay it over the nose, and you'd have air in between the mannequin head and the nose. Because I'm not making this a mask per se, this is a bust for my monster museum at Terra del Monstrum. I'm not going to worry about doing this on a head form. So it's on a mannequin head form, which is not quite in human proportions. It's close, but it wouldn't be a very comfortable mask. And it's also looking a little bit onto one direction, which is okay because, once again, it's not going on a person. So some of this will be very boring for you, and I apologize about that, but this is sculpting. Some of sculpting is boring. I wish they had like a version of Face Off that you kind of showed them every hour they were in the lab, because mold cleaning sucks. A lot of it sucks. Sculpting is tedious, especially if you're doing something with scales or whatever. You got to do the same thing over and over the whole thing. A little repetitive. And on this one, everything else I've done was going to be a mask or the cat, which obviously wasn't even mask-like at all. So this one, I'm actually going to put eye forms in it, and I'll sculpt a little bit of an expression into it because it's going, it's not going to have the benefit of having an actor in it to help it emote. So is there a limit to how many people can get on this? I really have no idea.
Well, last I heard it was 8, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Good. It looks like 3 people are already watching on YouTube and have given up. So, but that's pretty crazy.
Hello, by the way.
Howdy. And I'm doing the whole pinchy process of just putting things on. And I'm doing Nosferatu. I'm doing my take on Nosferatu. I was never a huge fan of the one. He looked really scary, but it's not my style. The one from Salem's Lot. That was a good Nosferatu vampire. Of course, the one from Nosferatu was another good one. But I don't like him looking that feeble. And those kind of looked a little bit almost unhealthy. And I sort of like them to look a little more robust. Skeletal, but strong, have that understructure there, those muscles. So, yeah. Our haunted house, Dark Hour, has had its second weekend in Terra del Monstrum. I'm pretty happy with the turnout, so that is good.
You've been a horrible inspiration on Steven.
What's that?
You've been a horrible inspiration on Steven.
Oh, is he sculpting or something?
He's biting at the bit to start a haunted house.
Oh, yeah, well, that happens too. For pro haunters, most of their work is done, By the time October rolls around, by the time, Halloween weekend especially, you're downhill. So some haunters really gear up right about then, and
Yep.
pro haunters are like, all right, 2 more days and I'm off. That's normally how that works. I'm using water-based clay. If you want to sculpt in water-based clay, find some near you in order to, because you don't want to ship it. It comes in a 50-pound box.
If anybody has an AC Moore around them, I found 25-pound bags of clay there.
Of where at?
AC Moore.
AC Moore. Is that a hardware store?
It's like Michael's.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. We don't have any in Texas, but if you look for a ceramic supply place, they normally have it because it's ceramic clay. And the kind of clay that I normally get is called white stoneware or white modeling clay.
Cool. I don't know.
But almost any of that clay will work. Just it all depends on what you like. This is kind of garbage clay for most sculptors because it doesn't. It's real easy to form and shape, but at the same time, it doesn't hold detail quite as well. And you have to support any. Like if I was doing a werewolf, I'd have to shove a screwdriver in here or something to make sure that snout had some kind of understructure to it.
Mm. Is it a sacrificial screwdriver?
No, it comes right out as soon as you clean the mold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not permanent by any means. And I think I told most everybody else who's been on here that this is actually going to be a prop, so this is not a mask, so I'm not making it like a mask. Normally I worry very much about actors being able to see and breathe and all that. This time I am not worried about it.
Is it going in your museum or Dark Hour?
It's going in Terra del Monstrum in their wax museum area.
Cool.
And once again, if anybody has any questions at all, then they should just ask.
Yeah, Alan, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why are you using the little pieces rather than just like doing larger strips of it?
Well, if I do a big slab and I lay it on, it has its own consistency, it has its own density, and it might not lay entirely flat. I wouldn't know that from the outside, but if I laid it over the nose, I could have gaps on either side of the nose. So I might not have a uniform consistency. Doing it this way with these little dabs, I know I've got about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch over the whole thing. It's also a fast way. I have like a quick ghetto texture on this. As soon as I get it smoothed out, I'm going to have all these natural little bumps and lumps and stuff from how I did this. And I like those. If I did the slabs, I'd have seams, and then I have to work around the seams. So each one has their own benefit. The slabs are faster, but I have a little more control this way. Because I'm putting on each piece and I'm spreading it out. I find that by the time I blend the seams and everything, they're about the same time-wise. And if you cut 1/2 inch slabs and put them up here, then when you spread it out along the seams, that area is not a 1/2 inch anymore because you've spread that out. So a little bit of a pain in the butt. And I picked up that tip on one of the Stan Winston school lessons. They did a full prosthetic head, and when they did that, he used this method, and he kind of explained that, and I'm like, oh, okay, makes sense. Because every now and then I'll be sculpting when I did the slab method, and I'd find an air pocket where it just wasn't laying up against the bust, and that can cause problems on a couple different levels.
Yeah.
So that is why. It's probably a very long answer.
Well, as you said, it makes sense.
And slabs cover more ground, but you don't always know what's under there once you do it. I'm kind of watching the camera here to see what I've covered and what I haven't. It's nice to have. Often you'll have a mirror on the back side or on one side so that you can look at stuff that way, and this is kind of taking that place. Now this head leans forward a little bit, so I'll have it plopped up on a bag of clay when I get it all covered. And I'll also probably have to keep a mound of clay on the back as a weight balance.
Now, are you using a base that is a head that you purchased or made?
This is a mannequin head and shoulders that I found in the dumpster. Just a fiberglass mannequin that I rescued from a dumpster. Then I didn't need the chest of it, so I cut it up so I could use this head. For many years, I put clay over it. I sculpted a very rough head on it, and it was a clay golem in my Monster Museum at Scarborough Fair.
Oh, cool.
But then I wanted to make a big clay golem, so I made a big, like 8-foot tall one out of styrofoam, and he left, and then I busted all the clay off. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that head. And now he's back in the fold as far as being a sculpting form goes.
Cool.
And probably a little on the valuable end as a prop to just have it sit there as a clay golem. But honestly, that museum was built in a very short amount of time, and that was a fast fix that just ended up staying for years. I find that in haunted houses or whatever, you get a fix just for opening night, and then that fix stays there for the next 2 or 3 seasons, unless you have to take it down and put it up again the next year. A lot of those, well, this will work for tonight, they just stay. Hopefully I'm not the only one who finds that is true. But as soon as that piece stops screaming, you just carry on. All
Well,
right.
not only that, but you can always give another haunter something that you don't use anymore, and they'll benefit from it.
Yeah, if it's worth it, you know, a lot of times, you know, if I'm going to throw it away, it's probably garbage. There's kind of a haunt, you know, in this area. We have Reindeer Manor, run by the Lomans. They also do 13th Street Morgue. They have a great show. And if Alex and I say something is garbage, probably nobody wants it. But there's a couple haunts who will say, okay, we'll take it, even after that stage. But there's just some stuff that we just don't, you know. And I have a thing where if I have to store it for more than 2 years before I'm going to use it, I don't want to keep it. Because the storage space is worth more to me. And it used to be that I would change the theme. It used to be the Trail of Terror before it was Terra del Monstrum. I would change the theme of that every year. But then I'd find stuff that would be perfect for one of my 5 themes that I rotate through, but I don't want to store it the whole time. And I think we've kind of settled on the black and white theme, and I think we're going to keep that for a few years because it's just... We're right next to Dark Hour Haunted House, and Dark Hour Haunted House is a very good show. It's very high tech. It has great production value, and Terra del Monstrum is a little show that I put together for very little money, and I rely on very talented actors to bring it to life and to help it hold its own. So, being right next to Dark Hour, it kind of has to. It has to be different. And I couldn't do anything that was good because of the same budget, so I had to do something that was different enough to be good in comparison. And the black and white is a good contrast to the completeness of the high-end Dark Hour show. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
I was very impressed with the show last season.
Well, it's actually bigger this year. It's a bigger show, and it's... I dare say it's a better show. A little more time spent on sets. Last year was the first year for Dark Hour Haunted House in Plano, Texas, and the first year that we did Terra del Monstrum there. And each one was done in an insane amount of time. And because of that, we didn't quite get them where we wanted. This year, we really had time to tweak it and make things what we wanted them to be. And I'm very proud of the show that we're putting out right now on both sides.
Yeah, I wish I could come through and see the black and white show, man.
Well, I think you guys are open. Zach works for another haunted house in our market, Dan's Haunted House. It's called Dan's Haunted House, which I think is a great name, owned by Dan. And I think you guys are open all the same nights, though.
Yeah, it makes me a little bit sad. But luckily, myself and Rob did get to come through and see the main house on your guys' Wednesday show.
And we still do the backstage tours on Thursdays.
Ooh.
So this is, I think, the first week for that. Maybe you can come out on a Thursday evening.
Yeah, I might have to check that out.
And again, I'm just covering this whole thing, and I didn't really check when I started. It was probably close to 9 o'clock. But yeah, I'm going to be about 20 minutes to start doing this, but it's worth it. Makes life easier. Because I'm going to go ahead and mold as much of this as I can, because you know, the more of this I have for that display mannequin, the better. There's a Spider Hill Prop Works out of North Carolina. They do all the PVC skeletons. I bought 10 or 11 of those, and those are how I built all my figures for my museum. And they made it way easy. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
He sold like gangbusters over at Midwest this year.
Yeah, I was very glad to see him at Midwest. Very glad. And I bought after, you know, because I knew I was going to buy, you know, 10 or 12 of them. So I'm like, you know what, just go back and I'll order from you when I get there. That way you could sell all his stuff there. Cash and carry. That's
Yep.
what makes Midwest pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. You going next year?
Oh yeah, I don't miss Midwest. I'm gonna look now to see who's on here. Okay, I'm probably not gonna make it to HauntCon this year. They're kind of going up against the show they teamed up with last year, so that's a little weird. The Halloween costume and party show, it was in Houston for years and years. Well, now it's going to be in New Orleans, and HauntCon is in
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
And
So,
you got Mardi Gras.
right. And just the one business. Well, I don't want to be there for Mardi Gras, that's for sure. But I'm just not a loud bar noise person thing. That's just not my fun. And I am a super duper happy married dude, so I'm not going there for boobs. Which I never understood the whole. I'm a little afraid of, surprise boobs. I don't want surprise boobs. There should be a plan. You should have a plan for boobs. And then they appear. Probably shouldn't have said that. When there's a plan, when there's a want and a need for boobs, they should appear. But
I can just
surprise.
walking by. Oh my God! Is there 3?
Right, surprise. They're not as good. They're rarely as good.
Somehow I don't think that's going to make onto the Bloodshed Brothers next video stuff hunters say.
Surprise boobs, yeah. Okay, I can almost start sculpting.
So for those of us who came late, what are you sculpting tonight?
I'm sculpting a Nosferatu head.
Oh, cool. I know
Because
where that's going.
that's right, it's going in the museum. I'm not a fan of the one that I have right now because I made it in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's okay in dim lighting, I can up the lighting if I up the quality of the sculpt.
Yeah, he's a little goofy looking at the moment.
Yes. And this back here is just a counterweight in order to keep everything I build up here from making him pitch forward. Have a little drink.
It isn't a true hangout unless somebody's drinking.
Well, I'm not a huge drinker, but I have discovered that I like a beverage called rum chata. And I will drink rum chata and A&W root beer, because when you mix them together, it's like a root beer float.
Huh.
And it's pretty darn tasty. So, one of my tricks, if you watch me sculpt, if you heard me sculpt, or if I talk about it, which I do, is if there's 2 body parts that you're doing that are the same, like cheekbones or ears, I take 1 piece of clay and then I take it in half. And I make sure those are pretty even. And then I can do 1 on each side, and I know they're going to be the same size because I use the same amount of clay. If I sculpted 1 ear all by itself, and then I went over to do the other one, I wouldn't have as good a gauge to make sure they were the same. So, and ears are very important to this guy, so I am going to just put down like a note for the ears right now. The way I do my ears most of the time is I have clay in each hand, and even I'm kind of ambidextrous, but I'm not super ambidextrous. I don't write with this hand anymore or anything, but I can use it to mimic what my right hand is doing. So I'm concentrating on my right hand. So everything that my right hand does, I'm making my left hand do. There we go. And I'm not going to put a super point on the ears right now because it would dry out. It's very warm in this garage, and I don't want things to dry out. If I made them a real sharp tip, it would dry out faster. And all I have on right now is cheekbones and ears. And because Nosferatus are always bald, it looks pretty Nosferatu-like already. But
Hey,
a lumpy. Yeah.
you've got viewers from Finland and Turkey.
How do you know this?
I've got the hunt up on YouTube.
No.
I'm looking at the,
I'm not going to put a super point on the ears right now because it would dry out. It's very warm. I'm going to, yeah. You're time warping me here.
sorry.
All right. And that's only good if I can take back what I said like 6 seconds ago. I probably wouldn't have went off on the whole boob tangent. I'm adding a chin at this point because I tend to work in silhouettes and profiles. I'm actually watching the profile of it in the camera, and I'm looking at the facial silhouette right here in front of me. And I'm just making sure that it meets all the silhouette points that I want, and then I can fill in around those, if that makes sense. Kind of a connect the dots. I'll build it up, and then I'll connect the dots through to it. I think since vampires are bitey, they should have a good jaw structure to them. You know, and so I tend to beef up, make them a little more lantern-jawed. And the mouth is a weapon, so I want to make sure I accentuate that. And again, I'm not doing any fine detail right now. I can't detail the mouth and leave the rest of it like this. I have to kind of bring it all into focus at once. But what I can do is just make notes of where I want stuff to be. And I'm doing that just with little pieces and worms of clay. Oh, no pockets. And lips are kind of important. Mouths are hard. I think mouths are tough. I think they're one of the toughest things to get right on a sculpt. And there's lots of ways you can easily do them wrong. But I'm not going to finish the mouth right now. I'm just putting enough on so I know that he has a mouth. And now I can work on the brows. I think this is a very important area because a lot of your expression comes through your brows, you know. So I'm going to focus on it next. And I'm looking to see if I have any eye forms around. And I do. I'll be right back. I have a little parts shelf that's just full of stuff. And, you know, it's one of those little containers with all the drawers. And, yes, I have eyes. Once again, I wouldn't do this for a mask because I want it to use the actor's eyes. But because this is going to be a bust, I don't mind doing it. Family is very surprised. And I'm going to do eyelids, so once again, I'm getting a little bit of clay, and I'm doing it in half, and this will be both of my lower eyelids. Just enough of a cigar shape to attach, wrap underneath, and attach. Other little piece, cigar shape, about the same length, and notice the same amount. Attach, wrap underneath, and attach. And just eyelids and eyebrows, sometimes they run together on sculptures, but they are separate entities. if your eyelids went up every time that your eyebrows went up, you would look weird. Nobody wants that. So same for the top eyelids. I have one piece, cigar shaped it. Just gonna tuck them in. Then sculpting eyes is tough. It's not terribly important that your eyeballs are round. That is because everybody knows that they are round. So as long as your eyelids are not deformed, then people will fill in that the eyelids are round. I hope that makes some sense. And I'm just pushing that clay in the position that I want. Then if I want to bring it down, I'm just going to make a wrinkle. And making that wrinkle will spread the clay out, making it go down. But again, I'm not going for detail right now, so I'm going to bring the whole thing into focus at the same time. And there's normally a part of the upper eye structures in the eye socket that really is more in the brow that kind of hangs over the eyelid. And if you look on me, when my eyebrows are at rest, you can't see much of my top eyelid because of this. I guess it's fat. Maybe I have a fat eyebrow. But lots of people have that. So when my eye is at rest, it's down and it kind of lays on top of my eye. You can see it's separate when I lift my eye up. It's not an eyelid. It's just extra tissue attached to my eyebrows. Now I have very big eyebrows, and they affect a big part of my face. I use that in my haunt acting. But I also need to show those proper facial structures here. But more important is the brow for him. And I do the brow as one. A lot of sculpting is doing something and then taking it away because you put on too much. So this is a lot of clay for an eyebrow. I'm going to have to take a lot of it away, but I do want to have a statement when I put this on here, you know. And the eyebrow is what tells you if he is bad or mean. And I pull that brow down. And now I'm just kind of getting it into the shape that I want. There we go. And I want to get all these little lumps and stuff smoothed out too. So I might as well wet it all down, and the water's going to break down the clay just a little bit. And that'll help me smooth it out. I'm looking for a hunk of hacksaw blade. It's dangerous to tell you guys what I'm looking for because odds are good I won't find it. And I would use that hacksaw blade to run over it and use the hacksaw blade to run over it and give me all these little lines, which makes smoothing it out pretty easy. But again, I can't find that, so I'm just going to use a kidney. Kidney is the standard sculpting tool. I won't have all of my little lines, but I can just knock the top off all these lumps. And while I'm knocking the top off of the lumps, it's also knocking the loose clay I take off into the valleys. So this does work. It works pretty well. They also have serrated kidneys, which are very nice. I just can't find any right now. I looked for one of those when I was sculpting the creatures in Black Lagoon. I could not find one then. So odds are good I will not find one now. Any questions? It's still kind of me talking to myself.
What advice do you have for somebody who's just getting into sculpting?
You suck. That's my advice. You will suck for a while, and I sucked for about 10 years, and finally I realized that I wasn't looking at stuff. So I guess it's my advice is look at stuff, look at everything. What's on top of what structures need to be there? You know, what shortcuts can you take, and what can't be shortcutted in sculpture, because something like a face, boy, we see faces all the time, and there's some positives to that. The positives to that are we know eyeballs are round, so you can kind of fudge the roundness of an eyeball because the human brain will fill in that that's a round structure. So almond shaped is okay. On the other side, though, is if your pupils aren't dead on and one's looking a little bit off, your monster's a lot less scary because he's got that wonky, lazy eye.
Yeah.
And you know, there's other just you can't spend too much time on getting your anatomy right. Learn anatomy, get it down, figure out what structures have to be there, and what structures.
Oh.
And you guys are looking at a pure profile for a while. Now I'm taking a brush because I did smooth it out with the other tool. I'm just taking a big brush now, and I'm brushing the water, and it's doing the same thing as the kidney tool, but it's just a lot smoother. Almost like going with 100 grit sand, 50 grit sandpaper, 80 grit sandpaper. That's the difference. One of the things you want to watch out for are tool marks. And tool marks don't look like wrinkles; they look like you hit it with some kind of a tool. A bunch of tool marks all over the thing, you can get numb to them, and they look like a skin texture or wrinkles. But just one tool mark all by itself, you really got to work on and obliterate those. I haven't done any wrinkles here yet because I'm just not at that stage. I'm getting my forms done right. If you watch Making Monsters, oftentimes you'll hear Jordy Shell or Mikey Rotella. You'll hear them talk about how they shouldn't have someone else rough out the forms on it and then have them do the detail. They should switch that. Because if your forms are good, the detail does itself. And having the right forms and the right structure are the big deal as far as making a sculpt good. Getting that anatomy believable. It might be a mythical creature, but it still has physics. It's still going to have structures. You know, you don't make up anything new. You steal the shoulders of a panther, and the feet of a chicken, and the back legs of a frog, and all of those individual pieces have to be anatomically correct. And your creativity comes in you joining them together. I might have the eye bags of a 98-year-old Ukrainian woman on this, and then I might do the bottom lip of, some kind of sculpt. I might find another mask that someone else sculpted online, and I might, kind of borrow that bottom lip. So your design is putting all those parts together. And odds are really good that bottom lip that I took from another sculptor, he had a different visual reference of. Okay, more advice for a sculptor. Don't be lazy. Always mold something that you're going to be proud of. And that's a lot harder than you think. I was really lazy on my ears for a very long time. And currently I'm using the camera to look at my brow as I sculpt his brow. He's not going to have my brow, but I am going to at least borrow my forms from something natural, at least as natural as I happen to be, which is debatable.
So you're aware, Alan. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but I know I do. Whenever you pick up the camera and point it towards the mask, I have a very difficult time hearing what you're saying.
Okay, so I'm going away from the microphone. I'll just go louder. Thank you.
That would probably work. Just letting you know.
Yeah, it's a directional mic on the laptop, so probably when I point away, you're just not hearing. I used the popsicle stick to carve those lines in, and then I'm brushing them out with my paintbrush with water. Because just the popsicle stick looks like I dragged a popsicle stick through it. But brushing it out, I can make it look a lot more like a ring. Everything is kind of coming up. I see that this cheekbone, even though I use the same amount of clay, isn't quite the same, so I'm beefing up this cheekbone because I like the other one better. And probably the understructure was just a little bit off. And these guys always look a little bit old and a little bit more feeble, so I'm going to add a little more weight, a little more fat to the face, because I don't think I want it as super gaunt as it is right now. Right now it's a vampire supermodel, because I'm doing it on a mannequin head. And I'm getting this is my nasolabial fold cigar, but I'm doing in half. This is your nasolabial fold. I'm kind of a fat guy, so you can see two lines running down my face. You can see one there, and you can see one here. And those are different muscles in the face that fat is just forming over, kind of like you lay a blanket over something. So I'm getting both of those details. And you can see it really well right here, at least I can right now. There's one line here and this line here. What these are is this fatty bit right there. And once again, I'm putting on a lot. I'm going to have to take it away in order to have the right amount. But it's going to add some weight and some fattiness. Anything under a muscle is going to be tight and taut, and it'll look like it's stretched. Whereas anything fatty should look loose and have some dimpling in it. So I'm going to be able to do that in this. It's very important when you do an ear that you just take a little chip or two out of this part of the ear to show how fatty this little bit of your ear is. And that helps make it look soft. I'm going to use the back of this popsicle stick to just blend this in. And I'm blending in along that hard line I just put on there. I'll blend that in with my tool on both sides of the face. And now to show real fat and weight, I want to bend this back a little bit. Because now it's almost a jowl where that fat is kind of hanging down and adding the weight. And doing it this way by building up these lines and by getting all those big pieces, it helps me bring things into focus because now I can see where my holes are. I've got this great big thing here, this great big thing here. I need a little nub in between those, kind of, in order to sell this structure. So I get a piece twice as big as I want, basically. breaking it because both sides of the face are going to need this. I'm just going to fill in this. And I'm brushing it out. It is very important that we do not become married to anything that we put onto the face, onto our sculpt. We are pushing mud around. I may have to cut a piece off, move it. I may have to, you know, knock a shape down. Yeah, the face is uneven, but it's already sculpted. That's a lazy sculptor. Fix it. Make it even. You're making mud pies. You know, you're just making them shape the way you want. So now this face has a lot more structure and weight. I'm kind of not necessarily liking this jaw area, but I think that's because of the camera angle is what I'm seeing. So. And I'm not going to have that chubby of a face and then a super slender neck, so I'll have to add some onto there. But before I do any more detailing, I got to smooth it out a little bit more. Take this brush all over again, and I'll probably try and get a rag and rag it out. That'll help a lot too. This is like a kidney. It's a plastic scraper. I get them at Harbor Freight. I go through these like crazy, and I use them a lot for sculpting because it's a nice smooth tool to move clay around. It really sucks to get the whole front of the face finished and awesome, and then have to spend an hour on the back of the head just smoothing out lumps. So I'm trying to bring this whole thing into focus at the same time so I don't have to do that later. Noses are tough too. Noses are pretty hard. So I'm kind of staring at his nose a little bit, and I've been staring at his nose the whole time, thinking about what it needs to be to get across what I have to get across with him. Nosferatu is a French word. I should give him a little bit of a French nose. I think that's going to be helpful to my cause if I can do that. So a little bit on the bigger side. He's not a cadaver. I've established that with some weight in his face and on his cheeks and stuff. Going to pop in a little bit more clay on each side for nostrils. I tend to like a more hooky nose on my villains. Put some clay under here. Both profile and the front view are important for noses. So I'm looking at it from the front and from the side at the same time. Now this looks ridiculous coming down here. So I have to add some meat up in here or take this down a little. I'm going to try adding a Roman bump up here. See if that helps me any. I don't think that it is. So I'm going to take a loop tool and knock that down.
John's asking if you're using your reference picture.
I will later. Right now I'm not. Soon I will. Because right now I'm really just working on an exaggerated human face. And if you see me making faces every now and then into the camera, that's because this is my reference picture. So I guess I am, yes. But right now I'm using my head. And I can use my head as a reference for a lot of other critters that are not me, because I'm just trying to get that gist. And that carving in that I just did, I think, is kind of the key. I think my nose was too wide. And this loop tool has little teeth on it. It's just a little bit serrated, so it leaves little lines in there that help me smooth it out later. But again, I put on too much, and now I'm taking it away. In taking it away is when I'm getting a good sculpt. Utmost respect for stone carvers, because all they can do is subtractive sculpting. I get to do additive and subtractive sculpting. You know, I add the blobs on that I want, and then I take them away. How do you whittle an elephant out of a piece of wood? You start with a hunk of wood, and you take away everything, and it doesn't look like an elephant. That's exceedingly difficult. A little bit easier to add the bits to make it look like an elephant. So I'll show you what the nose looks like from the front now.
Oh yeah, that looks a lot different than the side view.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the other side.
Yeah, that looks a lot different than the other side.
Yes. So, well, there's a harsh lighting difference also, and I think you guys are getting a little bit of that. But I want a little bit of strength in this nose. You know, you got to be afraid of this guy. Nosferatu, I think, is one of them. They look so human, and I think that's why they're pretty scary looking. You could almost be that if you let yourself go. And don't eat too much. I will probably never be Nosferatu shaped. Because of cheeseburgers. Love those things.
If you ever get a chance to come up here, we got to take you to Jumping Jacks.
Well, where are you now? Because you're not in Arizona. You're in New York, is that right?
I'm in, it's a little village outside of Schenectady called Scotia, and they've got a place called Jumping Jacks here, and they're only open during the spring to Labor Day, day before Labor Day.
Wow.
Wow, they've got burgers.
Okay. But they're that seasonal, huh?
Yeah, but they've been around for 60+ years.
Gotcha.
But their burgers are good.
All right, so I kind of had a Sleeping Beauty Queen chin on this, so I had to add a little more meat here to keep the chin from being just this ridiculous point. And that's my reference, because I always, every time I look at the animation in Sleeping Beauty, if you look at the King and Queen, the Queen has this ridiculous looking chin. But it kind of works for that movie, but any sculpt that I do that's really bad, I call it a Sleeping Beauty Queen chin. And pointy chin would be faster and easier to say. But I don't. Hey, wife? Want to come look at my Nosferatu so far? And sculpts look better if you put eyes in them. That's why sculptors do it. It makes themselves feel good during the process. Real hard to do, real hard to make a nice mask if you have the eyes in it, because it's real hard to see. Because then you have to look at it someplace that is not the eyes. But it does look a lot more human. It looks a lot more real when you get those eyes.
Do his ears get a little longer?
Yeah. And I'm kind of talking to my wife now. You probably can't hear her, but yeah, she asked, do his ears get longer? They do get longer. But I don't want the tips to dry out.
You don't want those dry?
Right, just like the wings of a chicken, my wife says, because she's a cook. You gotta tuck them puppies in.
You gotta check them in.
You would think that being a big bad Nosferatu, you wouldn't kind of care about his the look of his ears.
Yeah, and that's something that you can say to yourself. If the actor's doing their job right, no one will notice. But, you know, that's part of that not writing it off. And let's see, it's 9:58. I'm right about an hour into this sculpt. Not even. Am I 40 minutes in?
You're closer to an hour.
Closer to an hour? But I'm in pretty good shape for an hour in. I think I can knock this out in my hopeful 2 hours. All right, ears, part 2. I did the pointy part of the ear. Now I'm going to do that bottom fatty part of the ear. And to do that, I'm taking a hunk of clay, of course, twice as big, because I'm doing 2 ears. I used to do all my ears in one piece, and now I split them up after watching a tutorial from someone else who's actually pretty awesome, Don Lanning. And he does his ears in 2 pieces, and I thought, wow, that's a much better way to go, because it's really 2 separate structures.
Hmm.
And also adding more on the bottom makes them seem like they're longer. And on my laptop, I have a reference thing that I put together for just ears. I got one for just noses. I have one for just mouths. And often I will pull that up and I'll have that. You know, I can just look at that while I'm doing the ear. But there's a couple different structures in the ear that you have to worry about and get right. And I don't think I can do it without looking. So I'll have no idea what you guys are seeing for a minute. Maybe I can. I guess I could try and photo share this, huh?
Hmm.
There's a way to do that. You guys will probably want to see it.
Cool.
I'll screen share my entire screen here. All right. So now I have a bit of an inception moment because I shared my entire screen. I see this on this side and me on the other, but on this one it's split and it's split and it's split. So there's all these screens get tiny on this side for me. But if you guys can see those structures, that's an ear, you know. There's that hook and that kind of big old disc at the bottom. And it breaks it down really nicely into the hook, the Y, and the bump. You put those structures on, and you have an ear. I am reinforcing my hook right now with my tool. Do you guys need to see that anymore?
No.
Okay. Oh, it's Inception. I gotta stop screen sharing. All right, very good. And now for that Y that was in there, I just pull out a bit of the middle here, leaving these 2 big pieces, but pulling them a little closer towards the center. Now I'm going to carve out my ear hole. And there is the bump. I just take a little pinch. Bless you, Ian.
Pardon.
I
Sorry.
just take a little pinch, and I put that on here. And that is that little flap that kind of protects the ear. I got to do the same on the other side, which you can't see. So talk amongst yourselves.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
That's Ian. Ian is actually one of my actors at Terra del Monstrum, and he works with me during the day at Dark Hour. And yeah, he is quite a talented sculptor in his own right, but so far I've only let him use aluminum foil.
Oh boy. It can be tricky.
It is indeed. But rewarding.
I made a dragon skull.
Nice.
For work, professionally. I got paid. It was awesome.
How'd you manage that out of aluminum foil?
Create several balls of different sizes or whatnot, crumple them up into strategic shapes, and then glue them together. And hopefully by the end of it, you have a skull.
And then Ian discovered the joys of Bondo.
Oh,
Because he
man.
Bondoed over the whole thing and sanded it down, and you get a nice, firm, awesome dragon skull.
Step
Nice.
1, use a ventilator.
Yes.
You only have to learn that lesson once.
Ian was pretty high, and it was hilarious.
Man, not a good day.
Mary Powell taught me that one too. Like spray paint.
Oh,
I'm immune to pretty much all that now, which is kind of sad. I guess I've been doing it too long.
yeah,
But
that's not really something to be proud of.
Ian has kind of become my hands at the show. Often I'm stuck in the office. If there's an art project that needs to get done, I can kind of show Ian the first stage of it, and then, like, call me when you get to the next stage. He'll call me up, and then I'll go in and I'll show him the next stage. And he's pretty darn adequate at getting it done,
It's a living.
which is high praise from me.
I appreciate it.
So, now I am getting to the point where I can start doing a little bit of detail on this. I'll whip it around so you guys can see it from the front.
Oh wow.
Nice.
So I'm going to brush it out some more because I just want to... I don't want so many bumps. I look lazy. I want the bumps to go away almost so that they just read like part of the skin.
Okay. My eyes are getting.
And I am going to have to look at some picture references now because I want to do a lot of texturing. I got to do some... He's bald, so it's very, very easy for me to leave this all one texture. That texture being smooth, but I don't want to leave it smooth. I want this to have interest. Smooth is easy. And sometimes easy is good, but I think I can stay on target time-wise and have a good sculpt here.
What is your target time, Alan?
About 2.5 hours. So I've got maybe an hour left. And those jowls I did, those nasolabial folds, they're just a little too harsh. So I'm using the brush and I'm knocking them down. Knocking them down. I also think that my cheekbones are a little harsh, which that's pretty rare for me to say because I'm a cheekbone-loving fool. If you put big cheekbones on something, then it's very easy to make the face angular, and angles are scary. So That's one of my cheats, is I do big cheekbones. I do a thick brow. Now I'm going to put a little structure underneath the cheekbone, which is just like a bit of tendon to cheek muscle. Now, he's not gaunt enough where you can see this tendon well, so I'm just going to put it on here and then almost blend it away. But you'll get the gist of it. And I'm pinching off the top end so it's flat, and I'm blending that right up against the bottom of the cheekbone, and the rest trails down the face as if it's going into the jaw structure. Now I can brush it out a little, and I'm using the back end of this, the round side, to just blend it into the face more. Meaning I pinch both sides of it. And then that structure almost goes away, but the hint of it is still there. You know, you want it to look like you're laying this sheet of skin over something. And, you know, and you wouldn't have, it smooths everything out. So you got to keep smoothing out, And by adding that, it took a bit of that pointiness off of the cheekbone and made it blend more into the face. And now your mind's eye can kind of still see it. I don't know where that noise came from. Yeah, that's it. Is that you? Is that you, Christy? I've muted Christy. That was her.
It wasn't me.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed when I muted Bruce, it went away.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Bruce. Not that I don't value your opinions. All right. So, brushing all of this out.
It's okay. I know my mic is garbage. Oh, garbage.
Yeah, eventually I'll get a webcam or two, and I'll set them up so you can watch the sculpt in front, but I haven't gotten that technical yet.
I have a spare Microsoft one that I have left over from working for a company that I previously worked for, and it's not that old. You're welcome to it.
You know what? I'll probably just pick one up. I appreciate it, though.
You're welcome.
I don't think they're that expensive. I think they're about $80 or so.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with this at this point in time. I am, you know, I'm happy with how his structures are. I'm gonna go ahead and add the ear tips on now. That being my last thing before I do skin textures. I'm pretty happy. This looks a little Nosferatu-y. What I haven't done is I want to go ahead and put fangs in this. So when I sculpt and mold it, it's done. It's all one piece. I don't have to add fangs in later. And I may have to open his mouth up a bit to do that. That will be my next discovery.
What medium are you going to use to mold it, Alan?
Honestly, what I will probably do is I will mold it in silicone, this one, and then do a resin head.
Oh.
Normally I would mold in plaster, but this one I'll probably just mold in silicone. Because I happen to have silicone. I have more silicone right now than I have plaster, so that's why. All right.
Problem to have.
I suppose that it is.
It's an expensive problem to have.
that it is. Okay. All right. Pretty happy with the ear tippiness. They're definitely pointed. Need to get a little wire loop tool. Take this chunk out of here that I was talking about. And now I smooth this down. And that little divot just kind of tells you that it's a fatty structure. Makes it a little softer. So I've been a decent sculptor about 2 years. And I've been sculpting since '95. Because I never bothered to get good. I would just sculpt it mediocre and mold it. It got me by, didn't get me any better.
I just started doing a bunch of different research and watching videos, and I've been talking to the guys up at Biddy, and they started doing beginner sculpting classes. I was thinking of going there and taking one of those from them.
Never a bad idea. I think the best thing you can do for your money, though, is at Stan Winston School. That is really worth it. It's about 300. It's $300 to get all the videos you can watch for a year. It's not the special classes, but most of the special classes end up going on the channel afterwards.
Okay.
Cheaper than makeup school, and I think more useful.
I'll check that out.
Stan Winston School of Character Arts.
I'd rather hear your videos, Alan.
Yeah, my videos are good too, I guess. I started my videos to have a reference library for haunters, and I did not think that sculpting would be on the level of interest, because most haunters don't do it. But I wanted, if you needed to do something for a haunt, I wanted to have a video library where you could look up how to do it.
Oh, we appreciate it.
I'm not there yet, but I guess I'm kind of close. And not that I'll stop doing the videos as soon as I'm done, but at some point I'm still just going to be making an understructure, skinning it with something, detailing with something, and painting it. So it kind of gets to be the same thing over and over. Only this time it's a duck. Next time it's a parrot. Next time it's an elephant. Next time it's a giraffe. Those steps are still the same, no matter what you're kind of doing. Alright, so I just put these two little structures here on the side of the mouth, because a lot of people have those. Again, it's a little fold of fat.
One more time.
This little fat fold right here on the side of the mouth. You can't see mine because of my beard, but nasolabial fold is here, and then there's another little one here, just outside the corner of the mouth. And I put them on, and now I'm just going to knock them down to where they're of reasonable proportions. And I'm just doing that with the brush and water, just calming it down. I feel I have a bit too much in the brow ridge department here, so I'm going to knock this down a little bit. And because I want to get my forms right before I start doing any kind of skin detailing and skin texture. What I noticed about sculptors who I consider to be really good over myself, there comes a point where I would stop sculpting and call it done, and they don't. And that difference, I think that's what makes them really good. You know, I don't want to overwork it. I still have to have a reasonable time frame, and I need to get to that finished state in 2 to 4 hours on anything I do. 4 hours is a real long time for a sculpt for me, but I don't want to sacrifice. I just don't want to do bad work anymore. And I don't want to kid myself and say it's great when it's not, you know. Yes, this mud pie looks a little bit like Bigfoot, and that's what I was going for. However, I can do better. And I don't like looking at a sculpt and saying I can do better. So I just want to finish it. All right, those are toned down enough, I think. I got all these little lines from that tool, so I'm just going to brush them out.
You probably can't do it on this application, but in a past project, you took a picture of your sculpt and split it down the middle, left side to right side, to show different symmetric, you know, how symmetrical it was or actually wasn't. That was a pretty cool tool. I've seen you do that in the past.
I do that a lot, yes. I love that little trick. It's very helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and put some forehead wrinkles in. I don't have a very wrinkly forehead. Sometimes I wish my forehead were wrinklier so I could see more wrinkles.
Time will do that.
Why does that wrinkle? What do I use my forehead for? How often does it even move where it's going to get wrinkled? I don't know.
When you see something that makes you look like a deer caught in headlights, what is that? Go figure.
Yeah, I get a little bit. And then I got to stop the forehead because this guy's bald, so his forehead is going to stop somewhere. I got to get a new brush because that other brush had too much clay slip in it, and it would just fill in all these lines that I did if I tried to brush them out. Because, you know, your brush kind of fills with mud, and all these fine wrinkles would go away. And I'm really trying to soften the edges because that tool just makes a scratch mark. And I want that scratch mark to turn into a wrinkle. And the water-based clay is so wet, it's so simple, that I am just touching it with the brush. And it kind of leaves all these little raised up ridges, and that's the texture that I'm kind of using all over this right now, so I can view everything in a more true light. Obviously, I'm going to go over that with some texture, but Not right now. That is me figuring out what to do with the mouth. I was opening and closing my mouth because I told you that I want to put fangs in this. Well, I can tell that's a person now. You know, that's not a terrible sculpt as it is. But again, I want to get to that stage where it's, you know, a little more detailed, a little better than just this. I know this is a Nosferatu. I would tell that by looking at it. I wouldn't yet. It could actually be a vampire at this point, depending upon how I do its fangs. You could make a case for a goblin or for an orc, depending upon the teeth that I put in it. But I'm going to definitely make it a Nosferatu when I fix his mouth. And sadly, I really like his mouth right now. But that's not a reason for me not to do it. That's just a reason for me to do it carefully and right. I'm taking a tool that is largely just a needle. And I am cutting the mouth out. See, I like that. But I can't give it the mouth that I want with that lip in that spot. So I'm going to cut a little bit more and remove this piece of clay. Now, if I did slabs, I'd probably hit an air void or something, which would really mess me up. But I didn't do slabs of clay in the very beginning. I did all those little pinches. So now I have the mouth just about back on, and I've opened it up. But the bottom lip is now wrong. It sticks out too far. As you open your mouth, your bottom lip drags down and out, so I've got to adjust that with this. Get that roundness out of the bottom lip that you get when you pout. I don't want that right now because his mouth is more open. And I'm going to take the round end of this tool and push out my upper lip. I'm going to put a fang in there. So I want to show that there's something up underneath of that. I'm going to cut away a little more of this mouth.
Bruce said, Alan, your wife wants 2 bats.
My wife wants what?
2 bats.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
But if I knew what my wife wanted all the time, she'd be a happier woman.
And you be psychic.
I try my little heart out. But I am immortal. Okay.
You
So
posted it to your wall. Oh. Facebook, next best thing.
Did she post something that I'm supposed to make for her tomorrow because she knows I'm busy tonight? Something that'll take weeks of planning. All right, so vampire teeth. Here's my cheat. I take a lump of clay and I roll it.
Oh.
I do a little twisty roll, twist it again, roll it one more time. And now I can use the pointed ends of it as teeth. And they're going to be fairly similar in size. And I dropped one on the ground, of course. I'm taking my tool and I'm opening an opening in this lip. I already pushed it, but I need a little bit more room for these teeth.
Bruce asks, could you put in the hot glue teeth?
Absolutely, I could. But I want this to be finished when I cast it. I don't want to have to add anything to it. So while I could do that, I will not. I use hot glue teeth in a lot of masks, and they look awesome, if I say so myself. And I shorten down these fangs a little further. And Nosferatu have those fangs that are very close. They're very close together. That's one of the hallmarks of a Nosferatu vampire, is where the fangs lie. It's the incisors of a Nosferatu that are fangs, not the canines. Which I think looks a little silly and makes them look like possessed rabbits. But that's not a part of the design I want to mess with. And I would not mess with a possessed rabbit. So.
Real quick, what's your take on Hollywood redoing classic monsters, Alan, in a different style?
You know what? I don't mind it. When I was very young, I really wanted, if there was a troll in a movie, I wanted it to look like the trolls in every other movie. I was upset with the trolls in Willow because they were so hairy. I didn't think trolls should be hairy. But as I have gotten older, I realize that they all want to take their own take on it. They all want to add to that mythology. And I think that in campfires of old, I think that the storytellers, they might add wings to a monster the next time they told the story. They might, they would change it. So why shouldn't Hollywood be able to change things around a little bit and be a little different? The trolls in Lord of the Rings, I thought, looked very good. I would not have pegged them for trolls right off the bat, but you know what? They worked for the movie, and they did a good job with them. It was a good design. Everything in the Lord of the Rings movies looked like it came from the same world. And some mythologies miss that part of it. And as long as everything within their movie and their universe, Underworld is a great example of this. The Underworld werewolves look different than a lot of werewolves. They almost have a cat-like appearance to them. But they're consistent across their universe. And then when they got to Underworld 3, they showed normal werewolves and how they've evolved and changed, and I just thought that was kind of cool. So I now have some teeth in here, and I'm building up around them so the teeth are easy to paint later. I'm just putting in black around them. I'm putting in clay right now, but it will be black. If they stick out, then they're a separate piece of that mold. And if they're just part of this but raised and the back touches the back wall, then they're easier to mold that way. So I'm going to go on the easy route as far as molding goes. But now, since I've moved the jaw, I've got to move some structures a little bit. I need to pull a wrinkle down into the chin a little, which I didn't have before, and I didn't need it before, but now I do. I went a little crazy on that wrinkle, but I'm going to tone it down. So lips have a lot of scratches and stuff on them. Lips have a lot of texture, and they're a great place to put texture into your sculpt. Texture is what I use to make different areas stand out. One of the most textured areas is going to be right there under the eye and around the eye, and I want to draw attention to the actor's eyes, and that's one of the reasons why I do that. Lips are also a great place to add some texture, add some nicks, add some cuts, you know, wrinkles and creases, because they add character, they add focus. Just like you would take a spotlight and shine it on the areas that you want, you can use texture as a spotlight to make some areas pop more than others. And once again, I carved a wrinkle in, and I am mellowing it out with my brush. And that's a big set of wrinkles, you know. I'm actually going to put in finer wrinkles than that in a later stage that I will not mellow out. But this clay is a little bit wet for that. So I'm going to take a different popsicle stick with a different shaped end, and I'm going to define under the eye. So I can get these nice eye bags and stuff in here. And if you want organic shapes, if you want organic and round shapes, then use organic and round tools. If you want flat, smooth shapes, you probably have to use flat, smooth tools, plastic or metal, which will make it look less organic. Okay, and I'm just going to redefine a couple wrinkles through here. I'm going to pull them off of the eye bag area that I did. Kind of doing the same thing on both sides, not exactly where those lines go, but close. And I will go back and I will brush them out. Looking to see if I have a smaller brush. Just so happens this time I do. A little bit of water. I can brush out these wrinkles to make them look more natural, but also to add a little more focus up there on that eye. And when I first put the brush on, it's going to be wetter because I'm dipping it in water down here. It's going to be wetter, so I'm going to put it on the areas that I want toned down the most. And then as it gets dried off, because I'm running it along the clay, then I will move it to those areas because it has less water on it. And now over all of this, I'm doing that stipple again in order to blend.
Oh, cool.
I definitely have to add some muscle and some structures to the neck. So I need to get out more clay. And then there's two muscles on the neck that stand out the most, and they go right here. You know, you see these huge muscles on muscle guys, especially if they're lanky. They're tall, and you know they got a lot of muscle. You'll see those muscles really well. So normally those are the only two that I do on the neck because they show up really well. I get a lot of mileage out of them. I don't have to mess with all the other little muscle groups on the neck. But I do like to do some vertebrae on the back of the neck if I'm going for bony. Just some bumps, you know. Again, I made that one long cigar and I split it into two. So I got two sides of this neck. And his head is turned. This mannequin head is turned just a little bit off to the side. So that will show in his neck muscles. I'm using my finger the same way I use my tool to blend those in. I'm just going to use my thumb on this one. I don't want you to see those edges. Those edges have to blend. It has to all mesh. But I'll get this nice built-up area that blends in on both sides. Ropes and ramps is what it is. It's all ropes and ramps. And I am brushing the heck out of this to calm it down. I want it to tell part of my story. I don't want it to scream. It's got to gently tell my story. It's got to be part of this other thing, not like, look at me, I'm a neck muscle. I'm the only thing on the face you should pay attention to. We don't want that. And I think I'll even have to ramp these down a little bit more with the tool, with a rake, just to calm them down a little bit more. Ha! There's a wire loop, but it's got twisted wire on the end of it. So that twist gives me those kind of those same rake marks when I use it. And I'm just taking this chance now to just carve out some of from the neck into the body a little bit, give a little more difference and variance in there. So, yeah. And I'm at 10:41. I got about 20 minutes left in my 2-hour mark. But I am putting in detail now. I am adding to this guy by making difference in him. That detail is making one area different from another. You know, details in layers. I'm changing the depth. Brush this out a bit. Okay. Anybody watch The Strain, that TV show?
I didn't, but I wanted to. How was it?
That first season was actually pretty good. I did not like the look of the master vampire. He was kind of Nosferatu-y, and I just didn't like the look of him. I thought they could have done a better design job. And normally I love Guillermo del Toro's stuff as far as his design of creatures, but kind of looked like a Nosferatu vampire in sad clown makeup, but it was sculpted on.
Mm-hmm. But they are coming back for another season?
It seems that way. It's designed to do that. I don't know if they'll get another season, but I think they will. I think enough folks are talking about it and happy about it. And I would certainly watch another season. I don't think it's a Walking Dead, and I think Z Nation on Sci-Fi is probably a little bit of a better show. I haven't watched enough of that one, but it seems like it's got a little better story to it and good character development. I added a little Adam's apple onto there, which sticks out a lot, but that kind of helps this guy's look. And I brush out that Adam's apple. And I'll put a lot of wrinkles in around the Adam's apple because I just want it to be a real wrinkled piece of skin. And I'll run these wrinkles out from it like a sun almost, like a sun drawing. So then when I paint them, I can really dry brush it nice. Okay, I need a smaller brush because getting in there would be tough with my big brush I've been using. I'm just calming these wrinkles down. And you'll notice that I'm going a little more frantically now because I do want to try and get this in. I got about 15 minutes before I can call this guy done. And you know what? That's a limit I completely imposed upon myself. I pride myself on being a fairly fast sculptor, so that's something that I try to work on, and I try to keep working on speed and stay fast. But also, you guys don't want to sit here and watch me do this for 4 hours. You want to knock it out in a reasonable amount of time, and I respect that. I'm going to use this metal tool now to knock out some micro wrinkles here, up around the nose. That clay is very soft. It'll have a hard time holding those wrinkles. So I'm just going to get this brush out and brush these out. There are some points for detailing. You don't want the clay to be terribly wet. You do want it to be very wet while you are sculpting your forms and moving that kind of stuff around. But now, if it's too wet, I can't get it to hold a wrinkle correctly.
Is it any trick other than time to dry it out, Alan?
You can use a hair dryer. That works. That helps. You can also use powder, which I'm about to do. There's powder over top of this sculpt, and that powder will wick up some of it. It'll also fill in my lines a little, so I'm going to run a little more wrinkles in it, figure out where I want those wrinkles to be, and then that powder is going to help fill those in.
Just household talc powder, or?
Yeah, regular old baby powder from the dollar store. Because the dollar store.
I was in there tonight thinking about you.
Good. They have a bunch of little stuff that you just need. And now these wrinkles here I'm just putting in, they're just, you know, just some wrinkles, just some texture. Make these cheeks look a little different. You know, if they're going to stick out the most, they should probably be the most weathered. All the wrinkles in your face have a direction. And if you go off of that direction, people notice, and it looks a little weird. So it helps if you can find where wrinkles go, what direction do they go in along a person's face, and follow that with your wrinkles on your sculpt. And these look terrible right now. They're just gouges in it. But they're going to be calmed down quite a bit. And I'll go and grab that baby powder and a dry brush. This happens to be Deodorant Body Power, their version of Polo. I wore Polo when I was a youngster to the roller rink to pick up girls. I had no idea how bad I smelled back then. And I'm putting, oh, you guys can't see. Okay, I'm putting the powder down, a good sized amount of it down here, and then I'm going to take the brush, get the brush good and powdery, and hit onto those wrinkles. And the powdered brush looks completely different than the wet brush. So that's a different texture that it's giving it. It's still brushing out all those wrinkles, but it's giving it another texture, another look on this same sculpt.
And are you just only hitting the heightened areas with this different textured brush?
Yes, yeah, because if I hit everything with it, it would all look the same again. So I'm just hitting those areas where I did those little wrinkles on in order to kind of fill them in a bit, but also so they get more of a pointillist structure from the end of this brush as opposed to the crepey texture that they got from the other brush.
Oh.
And the real wet areas, I just got to put some powder on and let it sit for a bit because the powder has to have some time to soak up that moisture. If my clay were dry, I'd use hand lotion. And I'd paint hand lotion into it. And the lanolin in the hand lotion turns the clay almost into wet clay, which is water-based clay with glycerin added. And wet clay is what a lot of sculptors use, but that lanolin kind of does the same thing as the glycerin.
Good to know.
It also keeps your sculpt from drying out as fast. But can you guys see how those lines tone down? I can still see them actually really good here, but they're still a lot more toned down than they used to be.
Can't mute him.
Hmm?
Can't mute. Alan, somebody muted you.
Okay, am I back?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I wonder who muted me. They're a giant jerk.
You're the MC.
Maybe I muted me. I don't know. I was busy. So a little more brush. But that powder, very helpful, you know. Very helpful in making wrinkles look a little more real in this water-based clay. It works okay on the other clays, but not as well. And it's also keeping that gummy buildup from happening on my brush. So there's one anatomy rule that I always break, and that is if you look at someone's ear straight on, the middle of the ear normally sticks out further than the outer edge of the ear. Like if I get, can you see this side of my face now? That's the middle, that's inside my ear. But it looks so alien to do it the right way, I normally don't. So I have my inner ear inside of my outer ear as I think it should be. I'm not going crazy and playing God. I'm just fixing that one little thing. So it is now 10:54. I got a couple of minutes. I'd love to find a nice rounded tool and poke in some pore texture. And I have one over here. From the Dollar Tree, bamboo skewers.
Ooh, good to know.
There's a different pore texture on the nose and on, I'm going to actually dull this quite a bit. On the nose and chin, you see it more in old people, where it's just these dots that get kind of meaty. And I think that might be a fun texture to do on the end of this nose. And I'll get my old man from that, not from frailness. I don't want this guy to be especially frail. And on the chin, all right, and that looks really intense right now. But again, I'm going to tone it down. I'm going to tone down that intensity with some baby powder and some brushing. You know, some older people, they really look like their nose is all craters, and that's probably a little too much for what I want to do. And now with 3 minutes left, I don't like the form of the nose. I'm going to narrow it a little bit more. I think it's a bit too beefy up in here. So I'm going to take a wire to it and take some of that beef out of it.
There's two.
So I've got to do the whole process again, toning it down with the wet brush. But, you know, that didn't take long to fix in my mind. I'm going to get another dry brush and poke it with a dry brush to get the water off before I powder it. And I actually have another dry brush right here. So all these little brushes that I get these from Harbor Freight. I get them in a box. I think there's 36 in a box. Yeah, 36 natural bristle brushes. They are awesome. Home Depot sells the exact same thing for like 70 cents a piece, and that box is normally $5.99. All right, I got the powder. Brush that down, brush that down. I'm going to grab a Q-tip. Be right back. A lot of powder that came off of the face landed on the neck and chest, so I'm just brushing that off. And I need a dry brush to do that. And I'm just stamping over it in order to get those brush marks off, because that clay was pretty wet. Q-tip, a little water. I'll take this clay dust off the eyes. So this sculpt has been built up in time and in layers, and the eyes, if you guys recall, one of the first things that I did. But I made sure that I painted over them with wet clay off of the brush so they didn't distract me and make the sculpt make me think the sculpt was better than it was. I'm also using the Q-tip to do a little lid just under the eye. Got another Q-tip here to take that cleanliness a little bit further. But this is done in such increments, you know. At the beginning, it's like bam, cheekbones, bam, eyebrow, bam, you know, all nose, and then it's you know, this thing has barely changed. It's a lot harder to see. But I covered up those eyes so that I could have this moment and then reveal them.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
That about a nice.
Awesome.
That's crazy.
In about 2 hours. So he's a better Nosferatu than I am.
Turned out really good.
Wow.
Now I gotta blend out the back of the head just a little bit and get this lump of clay that's my counterbalance off. But if I take it off now, it'll pitch forward. And I'll do that before I mold. So that is a Nosferatu. These
Awesome.
lines look really heavy here, so I'm going to look at them. They look heavy on your camera. I don't see them when I'm looking right at it. But man, they look heavy on camera. But I'm not going to mess with them because they look good in person.
All right.
Okay, so thanks, guys. Hopefully this went up to YouTube and all. I don't know if it did or not, but hopefully folks can watch it down the road. So it's telling me that its battery is dying, but I'm at the end. So thank you guys for watching, and I can answer any questions on the YouTube video later if I didn't get to answer them now. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Have a good night, Alan.
Have a good night, guys.
All right.
Good night. Cool, cool, cool.